Broads Media.
A couple quick thoughts before we get into the action. Hello, welcome on in, everybody. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button as well. You can take me on the road with you. That's right, Sports Talk with Broads. Search that on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Make sure you follow over there. Hook me up to your Bluetooth when you're driving in and out from work. It's a no-brainer. A 5-star rating and a review goes a long way as well. Thank you so much. Lastly, we live stream twice a week here on YouTube. Coffee with Broads. That's right. The way you get access to it is you join the memberships here on YouTube. The information is down below in the description. You also get access to our Discord channel. Do not miss out. Thank you all so much for clicking this video and enjoy the show. Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on in. I want to really get into the thick of the deadline. And I'm starting to get annoyed because on a day-to-day basis over the last week, I've been dealing with way too many prospect huggers, and it's unsettling. The Phillies are in a position to go after a huge addition at the deadline. A Mason Miller who can gun 104, 103, and reach back every single pitch to blow it by you. You don't even see it. You don't even see the ball. He is going to throw it down your throat. You can have Brent Rooker, a perfect right-handed bat for what this team needs. So what? The defense takes a hit. You put him in left field, you put Marsh in center, and then Rojas can be what he is supposed to be with where he's at in his career, which is a defensive replacement and someone who can run the bases in a pinch run situation to maybe take advantage of some speed when needing a run. The last thing I'm going to do is hold back because you're afraid that Aiden Miller, a guy you had no idea who he was 2 years ago, I'm not staying put and just getting marginally better because of a prospect who you had no clue who he was. And the reason I say you have no clue who he was and why that matters to this convo, because Dave Dombrowski is going to get the next Aiden Miller that you will want to hug within the next draft. Same with Andrew Painter. Same with Justin Crawford. There will be a time where the next Andrew Painter, Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford are in your prospect pool. And you'll get just as excited about them. What bothers me about the huggers is this. Every single time they project a prospect to be good, they become elite. When in fact, most of the times, they either flop or they're okay. For example, J.P. Crawford is playing in Seattle. He's okay. 240 hitter. I believe he's been in the majors for about 9 years now. Guess what? If you trade J.P. Crawford, you're okay. Look at the Phillies now. The only way this stings is if Aiden Miller is Juan Soto, is Bryce Harper, is Aaron Judge. And I'm sure the ones who don't want to trade him right now are saying, he is that. Please. That's 2% of the league. It's funny. When you bring up Jazz Chisholm, everyone says, not that good. When someone brings up Cody Bellinger, too inconsistent. When someone brings up Brent Rooker, for example, it took him too long to get going. I'm afraid he's only done it for 1 year. He's 29. He's finally breaking out. Oh! Interesting. You're telling me Brent Rooker was a top pick that people thought would dominate maybe a little bit earlier, but took him a long time and a while to find his groove? Oh! Well, he's at his groove now. So if we could plug that in to this team who's ready to win now, That makes sense. And it won't ruin the sustainability of this franchise and trying to create success years from now. So I don't get it, because if you're unwilling to part ways with them, then what are we doing here? Are you excited about, I don't know, what's some names that I jotted down over the last week or so? Lane Thomas, which is a right-handed bat, and I brought that name up in the past before I went all in on making the big splash. When I was still teetering and wondering what I wanted to do, sure, Lane Thomas, a fair, respected right-handed bat to platoon with Brandon Marsh, who isn't going to face lefties, I could live with that. But I'm in all-in mode now, and I want to go after this thing. And by the way, these wouldn't be rentals. This is within the window of your 10-year contracts you're throwing around. Your Bryson Stotts, your Alec Bohms. I mean, Bryce Harper's here forever. Trey Turner's here forever. Aaron Nola signed a big deal. Zach Wheeler got an extension. Bohm and Stott aren't going anywhere. Brandon Marsh is still young in range. So this window shouldn't be closing anytime soon. So I keep hearing that, well, all these guys are getting older because they're over 30, and then you need some new ones to sort of replenish that, and Bryce is going to be a DH. Whoa, Bryce isn't going to be a DH at 34, 33, because Aiden Miller, Trey's playing short. Aiden Miller, what position's he playing? Because Bohm going over to first means then Bryce Harper isn't playing the field every day. The only time you're getting Bryce Harper to DH mode is probably when he's 37 years old. You're going to have to rip him off that field with his ears and drag him across the dirt. I don't understand the timeline of the huggers, of the prospect huggers. But I wrote down the names that I was thinking. And where is it? Oh, Tanner Scott, Lane Thomas. And if you look at the track record of Dave Dombrowski at the deadline, when there are some teams that he had in place at the top, at the deadline, more times than not, you have those type of moves more so than the David Price, which we've seen him accomplish, so it's not out of the question. But he leans more towards these type of moves. Scott Lauber also mentioned when I had him on my show yesterday that don't be surprised if maybe he finds a way to get a back-end starter that can help eat some innings, because they are concerned about the innings pitched for Ranger Suarez. He's never been a 200-inning type of guy. He is on pace to crack 200 innings. Christopher Sanchez has not been someone who has been a full-on starter like this. The innings catch up to you. So maybe in August, there's a 6-man rotation. I'm not sure how Zach Wheeler is going to necessarily love that, but if he's dealing with some sort of back tightness and back spasms and back issues, then maybe there's nothing you can do other than recognize I got to find a way to get to the finish line, and not only get to the finish line, but dominate once I'm at the finish line. All I know is I'm in favor of trading Aiden Miller. I'm in favor of trading Andrew Painter. Now, I'm more willing to stay with Andrew Painter and take a risk on what his ceiling could potentially be. And it's not like if I move on from them, I expect Aiden Miller to stink. But even if, let's just say, he becomes a Bryson Stott-like player, right? Like major leaguer, fun player. If your organization can't handle losing a Bryson Stott, then there's probably deeper issues. Because while Bryson Stott is a nice player, franchise changing to the point where it breaks you down to your core if you trade him and get a proven nice player back in return. If you swapped out Bryson Stott for Brent Rooker, different positions, but if you were to do that, you should be okay. And more times than not, this is what those prospects become. Think of it this way. Why is Mick Abel's stock dropping? We don't even talk about Mick Abel anymore. McGarry, these were supposed to be the cats that jump in and snag a role and potentially be a part of your future. Mick Abel is now a throw-in because nobody wants him. Sixto Sanchez can't get on the field. That's reality more than anything else. That's normally how it goes. So I'm aware that Dave Dombrowski wants to look at maybe how he's done things with Boston and how he has stripped his farm system down and, left some of his teams in very awkward spots. And maybe he wants to change that narrative here in Philadelphia. And I'm not totally against that. I'm not telling you to give him away for absolutely nothing. I'm saying go out and attack full throttle and go after this thing with killer eyes. And if that means you give some pieces up, then so be it. Because if the payoff is a championship, then that's what we need to do. All right, so I want you all to listen to Derek Jeter talk about who he feels will be in the World Series this year. And it is very important because it ties together with this conversation. Take a listen.
Get set for the second half of the baseball season, guys. I'm going to put you on the spot. Derek, we'll start with you. Who's going to the World Series and who's winning it? Let's get a little prediction time here.
Yeah, thanks for starting with me. Well, I think you have to, this is difficult because a lot of teams change once you get to the trade deadline. But I think as it sits now, the Philadelphia Phillies are the best team in baseball, in my opinion. I think the Phillies go to the World Series. And I think they're going to be facing the Baltimore Orioles. And the reason why I say that is the Orioles minor league system is stacked. And they're the team that's in the best position at the trade deadline. So I think Baltimore goes to the World Series. Ultimately, Phillies win.
All right. So part of the reason why I feel he picks the Phillies is the nature of the experience with this crew. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Wheeler, Aaron Nola, as fun as the Orioles are, there is something to be said about the track record and being through the grind before. But listen to how he speaks about the Orioles prospect pool. And it's very hard to know what the team will look like, any of these teams will look like, once we get past the deadline, because a lot of them will take some big swings. Some of them may take conservative swings, looking for a single the other way compared to maybe a double in the gap or maybe even a grand slam. So we'll see. But my point is, when you are a team that's going for it, as Derek Jeter alluded to, someone who's been through this before, you take a look at those prospects, you bottle them up, and you go after it. That's what you do. This isn't 20 whatever anymore, where it's about who's going to help change the franchise 5 years from now because you're watching Tommy Joseph, because you're watching Cesar Hernandez and Mike Franco and Sean Rodriguez. There was once a time where these prospects meant more. But as we watch this run continue, and I'm not just talking about this year, the window is open for a bit of time now. The job of Dave Dombrowski is not only to keep this team competitive in the now, but while we watch another 2-3 playoff runs, because, 2 years from now, I better see this team still competing. I just watched the Houston Astros go on a billion ALCS runs. They're in the ALCS year after year after year after year after year after year. That's what I expect this team in the National League to do. So I don't expect to fall off and drop off. You just brought Trey Turner to town. You just signed Nola. Bryce Harper's trying to get another extension until he's 40. This is about a while of going after it. So while you do that, you can continue to get these young 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and you can get more of them. You get more of them. So let's stop with this. Luis Roberts always hurt. Well, what's Andrew Painter? You can't say Luis Roberts always hurt, yet you feel great about Andrew Painter and you feel he's just ready to go. 2 thumbs up. Well, we were all ready to see him finally. He broke down and then poof, gone. It doesn't apply just to one guy. I want you all to realize what's at stake here. I don't like hearing you don't need to make a big move because you're already the best team. That's scary. That's scary because then others have the opportunity to go for it. What you're doing is taking your foot off the gas. And it reminds me of, because most of us are Phillies fans and Eagles fans, if the Eagles were up 30 heading into the second half, for some reason this hypothetical was you're up 30 after the first half. And in the second half, take your foot off the gas. Before you know it, it's 30-14. 30-17. The other team kicks a field goal. You hold them to a field goal. You feel it's a moral victory. They feel it's a moral victory. Now here, we're entering the fourth quarter. They kick another field goal, 30-20. Took your foot off the gas. I want to go for the jugular. And again, Mason Miller, team control for a long time. Brent Rooker would be here for some time. It's not rentals. You're not giving up the farm and then you have these individuals walk and go sign deals with other teams as soon as the season's over. It's now we have a right-handed bat who can do what Brent Rooker could do. And by the way, everybody wants their closer. Think about it. You make the game an 8-inning game because Mason Miller touching 104 is probably not going to get carved up on a night-to-night basis. And not only that, now Hoffman becomes your 8th, Alvarado or Hoffman, depending on when the lefties are lined up in the other team's batting order. So you have that side of it. Matt Strahm in the 6. I mean, I doubt Wheeler and Nola are just going 6. I mean, you could probably get a 7 out of a Zach Wheeler at one time. But let's say it does go 6. Let's say Wheels goes 6, throws 93 pitches. It's time to go to your pen. Strahm gets the 7th. Hoffman gets the 8th. Mason Miller gets the 9th. That doesn't get you excited. That doesn't get you pumped up to the point where you don't want to go after it. I can't relate to that. I just can't relate to that. Speaking of Mason Miller, he took a flight with the Phillies from Philadelphia when Oakland was in town to Texas for the All-Star game, and he spoke about a conversation with Bryce Harper. Take a listen.
Has anybody come up to you and just said, I'm scared as hell of you?
It was funny on the plane ride here, Bryce came back and introduced himself, which was super cool. But yeah, after we played them this weekend, our first base coach, Bobby Crosby, had told me that Harper was asking when I was warming up, like, hey, is that Miller? Like, I kind of want to get in there and see what that's about. And then I threw Friday, and it was up to like 104. So I saw him on the plane. I was like, I heard you wanted to get in and see me. He's like, I'm good. I changed my mind.
Yeah, I'd be changing my mind too. So there's 2 ways to go about that. Either Bryce Harper, and this is the way I lean, of course, knows what he's doing. He's done it with signing JT Realmuto. Pretty vocal about that. He is pandering of pandering. Or the master of pandering. Whatever. You get it. He loves to pander. Dude, this guy went to Texas, put on boots, a belt, a hat, tucked in his shirt, and just played up to them, which kind of ticked me off. I wish he went full Philly mode, full East Coast mode, Tim's, and although that's more New York than Philly, but whatever. Just go full East Coast, baggy tee, rocking Philly, going into essentially Dallas Cowboys territory and flipping them off. Now, I've said that recently and was reminded that he did grow up a Dallas Cowboys fan, which is a huge character flaw. So I don't know if he would want to stomp on the toes of all those Texas people. But, dude, this guy's a robot. Whoever taught him the second that he was on that Sports Illustrated magazine cover as the chosen one to handle all media availability and whatever the way he does. It just doesn't make sense. So either he's just playing into the way that he was sort of brought up, which is I'm going to pander and I'm going to do everything I can to talk to Mason Miller because, nod, nod, wink, wink, we want him here. Or the competitive spirit that he is. Why does he want to step into the box? Because he understands that everybody wants Mason Miller. And there's a chance that Mason Miller doesn't land with the Phillies. And if he does go to a team that, who knows, is maybe in the American League that he's projecting to meet in the World Series, or if he goes to a National League team where he feels that maybe we line up against them in the NLCS, when he's in that box and he's in the middle of games, or not the middle of game 7, but in the middle of the series, and here's Mason Miller in game 4 to try and close the game. Now, I'm pretending to be Bryce and I'm batting righty because that's my comfort spot. It's a disgrace by me. Disgrace by me. Where am I going with this? I have no idea. I have no idea. Why don't we go to the phones? Why don't we go to our guy, Malcolm?
Hey, bro, this is Malcolm in Georgia. On your last podcast, I heard you talking about possibly doing a deadline podcast. So I just wanted to throw this out there for that podcast and get your thoughts on it. I'd like to see Dave Dombrowski, if the Cubs are sellers, go out and get Ian Happ. I think I mentioned it on a previous time I called in, probably after that Cubs series, that I think he'd be a perfect fit for us. He's an outfielder. He's a switch hitter. We've seen that he has power from both sides. I think you could use him to plug him into left field, plug Marsh into center field, which would allow Marsh to get some time to see if he can bat against left-handers. And if it doesn't work, then you can go ahead and do the platoon thing with Marsh, and then you can keep Rojas around, which, hey, I'm like you. I think we cut bait, but the Phillies are sold on him. So if you got to keep him, I think Happ would fit that purpose of being able to keep him, allow Marsh to spend some time with left-handers, and then we've got a power hitter who's a veteran and can get the job done. I like the guy that was with Oakland, the Rooker, but he's just a straight right-handed bat. And I don't think he gives us the options that a Happ would give us.
Yeah, but I don't think you need any more lefties. I don't think it's about lefties at this point. That's why when I was looking at my list, and thanks, Malcolm, I appreciate the call. When I was looking at my list of guys that I prefer, Cody Bellinger just wasn't as high on my list strictly because I think we're good on the lefty part of it. If you were worried about a lefty outfielder, you have Marsh, right? You have Marsh. And I don't even know if they're going to give him that shot anymore to really prove himself against lefties. I think at this time, 90-plus games into the year, this is who they expect him to be. And a right-handed bat is what they are targeting specifically because they don't trust Brandon Marsh against lefties. So I am starting to feel like they are going with a platoon right-hander that will just be solid, a solid guy, a couple solid pieces, a solid bullpen arm, a solid right-handed bat, a safe trade deadline, which I don't prefer. Is it a full-on disaster? No, probably not. But it's not going for the jugular either. I want Mason Miller and Brent Rooker. Ideally. It's a dream, and I'd give up anything for it. They're not going anywhere. They fit the mold of now, and while you fit the mold of now, you can restockpile your system. That's how I see it. That's what I want. That's what I demand out of Dave Dombrowski, even though I do expect it to be quieter than that. And I hope I'm wrong. Dave has had a track record of being more on the side of what I just mentioned, but there are some big swings in there over the years. David Price being one of them. So we'll see what ends up happening. It depends, too, on when I mentioned this to Lauber, he said he doesn't feel there's many people on the market that it would even be on the table for Aiden Miller and Andrew Painter. Meaning, if it's Mason Miller and Brent Rooker that you want, I don't know. Is it even on the table that Miller is in a conversation for those guys? Maybe Luis Robert. But other than that, how many of these players that are available at the deadline are worth them in the Phillies' eyes? Like, they're not even conversations. Andrew Painter, Brent Rooker, Mason Miller, we're not putting this in there. They don't even start. These guys go in trades for Juan Soto's when the Padres are looking to trade him. Things like that. Brent Rooker or Mason Miller. That was sort of the vibe I got. So take that for whatever it is. But the point is, we can't be hugging prospects. That's silly. They don't work more than they work. And when they do work, they could most likely just be okay. That's how it goes. You can't project every single one of them to hit because most likely they don't. They don't. We can go through the list in this town of prospects that we thought were going to be great, and we'll weigh out the ones that pan out compared to the ones that don't, compared to the ones that just became okay. I don't want to take that risk. Not now. Not with where this franchise is now. My last thing here I'll say to wrap up is Bryson Stott put on his Instagram story one of those famous memes where it was, I'm paraphrasing, but they thought they had me in the first half. And then he also uploaded a picture of him celebrating, rounding second base, pointing to the dugout. Looks like he's ready and motivated to have a second wave here in the second half. He needs it bad. I'm a little shocked because he's that good of a hitter for him to be struggling like this, but I almost feel he is stuck in between two different mentalities right now at the plate, and he's trying to juggle that, and maybe having some time off over the last week or so to reset has given him a good chance to somewhat breathe and really understand the best way that he wants to go about his business here when they return and face Pittsburgh. Am I worried about any sort of schedule that's hard? Not really. Well, they face Minnesota. Well, they face Pittsburgh. Well, they face, who else is in there? The Yankees. And, well, they face the Dodgers. Yeah, but every team that sees the Phillies go, we have to face the Phillies. Phillies are one of the best teams in ball. They got one of the best win percentages there is in the league. They're on pace to win 1 billion games. When the Phillies come to town, the other team goes, oh, shit. The Yankees were spiraling before the break. The Phillies just swept the Dodgers. So I get it. Some of these games are on the road. Cleveland's in there. I get it. And I'm not sure exactly if Cleveland is. We got the Twins. Okay, the Cleveland's at home. That's why I stopped myself there, because that one is at home. But Minnesota's on the road. The Pirates are on the road. The Yankees is at home. So there's some things here over the next few series. Some things meaning some good competition. But the Phillies are damn good. So that doesn't scare me. If anything, they've showed you that compared to the rest of the league, they could beat teams above 500. And statistically speaking, they are the best in the league at beating teams with winning records. So we'll see what ends up happening. All right, everybody, that's what we got today. I appreciate it. Curious your thoughts all down below. Thank you all so much. And I was going to say enjoy the show, but no. Thank you for listening and watching the show.